This episode is proudly sponsored by Main Street Magazine. Happy Moxie Monday, Mary. We got a busy one today.
Oh my gosh, we have a great one. I'm so excited for people to listen to Madden and Susan Wheeler, who are the co-founders of an amazing organization called the Good News Girls, an organization aimed at women over 50. It is geared towards creating community and positivity for women in that stage of life in what they call the third act. And I was introduced to it through doing a poetry workshop at the American Mural Project in
Okay.
Winsted, Connecticut. And I met Mimi there, and we subsequently met for coffee. And she asked me to come talk at one of their dinners, which I did. And when I got there, I was just floored by this community of women. And I've since joined the Good News Girls, and I've done a hike. And I'm really excited for people to learn about them as individuals and what they've been able to do collectively in the Good News Girls. So I really want to get started.
Well, that sounds amazing. I can't wait to learn all about it. So let's just jump in.
Okay. So welcome, Mimi and Susan, to the Main Street Moxie podcast. We're so excited to have the both of you on to talk about both your individual lives and also your work with the Good News Girls.
It's great
to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Well, we're happy this worked out. So I thought we would start with a little bit of a dive into each of your own individual histories through the lens of Moxie, and then really spend the bulk of our time on the work of the Good News Girls and what brought you to create that network or collaborative. So what would you say Moxie is for each of you? Susan, you want to start?
Sure. I'd love to start. So to me, Moxie is that fire inside you that you feel there's more, and that you are capable of doing amazing things, even when maybe your brain or your body or both are telling you, stop, you can't do this. But that's really what it means to me, just sort of persevering over whatever life is throwing your way.
Mimi?
Well, when I thought about it off the top of my head, the word that comes to me when I think of Moxie is chutzpah. I grew up with several close Jewish friends, and that was a word that, again, I've never looked up the actual meaning, but the idea of kind of being somewhat audacious and bold, out of the ordinary, something people admire. And so for me, Moxie, it's the side of myself that makes me get into uncomfortable situations sometimes, but has thrust me into some wonderful adventures and relationships and projects in spite of a lot of insecurities. So I think it's that thing inside that just makes you go and do stuff.
So that's interesting. Fire and audacity are two words we haven't heard attached to Moxie. So it's amazing every time we do this that somehow people define it a little differently. So individually, how do you see that definition having manifested itself in your personal and your professional lives?
Well, I could go. I will tell you, I feel like I wouldn't be here today. I never associated the word Moxie with what I've accomplished or what I've done. But I will tell you a little side note. Moxie is an old soda. I don't even know if they have it anymore.
No, they don't.
I remember my dad used to drink Moxie, and I tasted it. It was like kind of spicy. I didn't care for it at all. So he picked a soda that the kids wouldn't drink, I guess. Me off of soda my whole life. But I think that for me, I've had some real challenges, and I could say that it was Moxie that helped me overcome things. And I think you need a bit of that to overcome anything. I had a terrible accident. I fell head first 14 feet. I was in a house by myself
Oh my gosh.
and I broke all my ribs, shattered my pelvis, broke my arm. And it was a long, hard recovery. But I will say that until that point, it was 34 at the time, I hadn't really done anything spectacular in my life.
Mm,
I was just sort of I was doing things, I was working, I was going through the motions, but I didn't have that zest to say, wow, I'm here for a reason.
hmm.
And I think when something tragic happens, you dig a little deeper. And that's why I talk about the fire and the grit and all those things. And so from that, it took 6 years and it was a long recovery. I wasn't recovering the total 6 years, but in 6 years, I still felt the effects, aftermath of that accident. I became a marathon runner and a good one too. And I've run, I can't even tell you how many marathons, many, many, many marathons, half marathons, ultra marathons. And had it not been for something tragic, I
Hmm.
wouldn't have pushed myself to do something so big.
Right.
So that's sort of, and that's just a physical example. I've stretched myself in other ways as well, in business, in relationships, in community, things I've done. But that to me, when you go from not being able to walk to running 38 miles, it really makes you realize there's so many things I'm capable of. Because that
Right.
is a feat that really not everybody can do. But when you put your mind to something like that and then realize, wow, what are all the other things that I think I'm not capable of doing that are a lot easier than running 38 miles? So,
You'd think that many people would be like, I can't do this, it's too hard, poor me. But it seems
mhm.
like you took the complete opposite effect and then took that to every other facet of your life. Were there moments where you made a conscious decision about that, or was it just like you had this inner strength that you're just like, no, I'm going here?
Well, the catalyst was a very close friend of mine was pregnant with her
Hmm.
third child, and she was diagnosed with breast cancer,
Oh,
a stage 4.
oh,
And she was very sick and had to go through chemo during her pregnancy. And at the time, I was floundering, right?
yeah,
I was sort of defining myself, as the girl that fell and whatnot. And I was still not in a big way, but still kind of licking my wounds.
hmm,
And I thought, what could I do that would be really hard to support her as she goes through this? And I got the idea to run, not a marathon, but just a small race. And at the time, walking was a struggle. But I
right,
will tell you, as it all, at the end of not the end of that day, but the end of many, many, days and years and whatnot of running, I'm so beyond that. My body is so healthy now. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. But I did it because I wanted to do something hard. And
right.
I thought, what would be, this was hard for her. What would be something hard for me? And I had friends that were running, and I always kind of looked at them in awe and thought, wow, it just seemed, panting and sweating and it seemed like a lot.
Chafing.
Chafing, all the things. Nothing about it really seemed appealing to me, but I was always awestruck by knowing someone that just seemed normal, that just ran 20 miles. And yeah, I thought that was an amazing thing.
Mhm.
And so I didn't end, I ended up there. It took me 1 year to run a marathon, in the training, but I started with that one race and it just went on from there.
Before we get to Mimi's story, I'm just interested in this concept of catalyst. And do you think one needs something like a 14-foot fall or an ill friend to kind of have the impetus and motivation? Or do you think that people without those kinds of catalysts can make those kinds of changes, of choices?
I'm going to give you two answers. I'm going to say yes, you need it, because I look back and I think I don't know what would have pushed me to do something. And like I say, that was the first step. There were many other things along the way that I said, wow, if I could do that, I could do this, I could do this. But at the time, I was 39 years old myself, turning 40, when this all happened with Lisa, that I decided to actually get it together.
Mm-hmm.
And so you don't need it. I don't recommend falling 14
No,
feet.
no.
I don't think anyone should take a chance like that. But I will say, when that happened to me and how it changed me, I always notice what people do.
Mm-hmm.
And I ask people all the time, what prompted you to do this? I'm always curious about it. And I will say, 8 or 9 out of 10 times, something, no one just woke up. There was something that happened. And it doesn't
Right.
have to be that big. It could be, I had a close call. I drank too much. And then I realized, we just interviewed a gal, that changed her life because she stopped drinking.
Mm-hmm.
And I think always there's a little bit of something. Rarely do people just wake up one morning and say, this is the first day of the rest of my life. And it maybe doesn't even have to happen to them. They could see something happening to someone else, and then they think, oh, geez, maybe I should take a
Yeah.
hard look at myself now.
The transitive property of moxie.
True.
Mimi, how about you?
Yeah, and I know, of course, I know Susan's story well, and I think the thing I just want to say that I love the most in Susan's story is that she comes alongside a friend to do something, and that's a beautiful motive. Like, that's a beautiful catalyst, in and of itself. I did not have one big thing in my life. As I'm listening here and I'm thinking, I like being a catalyst. I like being at the center of things. It doesn't have to be about me, but I've ended up doing things throughout my life that I feel, and you hear this a lot, an imposter syndrome, that thing. But I'm not a bold, audacious person, since I was young. I really admire those people who just like go for it. And I wasn't really like that, but I have always thought differently and considered ideas deeply that appealed to me that often weren't in the usual track of life. And so I kind of did my teen years differently and more independently, I guess. And then throughout college, studied literature, but ideas, psychology, that always really has intrigued me. And so one thing that helped me begin to believe more in myself and my ideas was early on reading about homeschooling. And I really love that idea because I love learning. And I love the idea of learning in life, not just academically, and how we can learn so much more in life. And I love the integration of that with the idea of homeschooling being a continuum. I actually read this book by John Holt, who in his 70s, he'd never had kids, but he was a very well-known public school reformer and educator. And he talks about the continuum of education, of learning in his own life, and picked up cello at age 70. That's the way I wanted to live my life. So I did that for a lot of years with my own kids. But that theme has continued. Like, I never have felt like I need to go back and get another degree to do X, Y, Z. I ended up stepping up to some position. And one thing I have to say is I have a lot of gratitude for people in my life who believed in me that I could do something, because that is a big way to develop your own moxie. So, for example, I ended up working at Hillstead Museum a long time ago now and doing a lot of fundraising. But at that point, this very famous poetry festival was about to end. Well-loved, top poets in the country. And I thought, I kind of raised my hand, said, I think I could do that. I think I could direct that. And I grew into it. It helped me learn that I do have a voice, that people do respond, that I have more leadership abilities than I might have seen in a smaller sphere. And also the joy of conveying to an audience the importance of their own lives, which is what that festival was about. It was about poetry. It was very accessible. It was an beautiful outdoor setting in the sunken garden there. And I felt like a catalyst there. And that was really fulfilling. It ended not easily, but again, another learning experience. And as Mary knows, I work at the American Mural Project.
Mm-hmm.
But again, stepping into something where this person had this woman, Ellen Griesedek, the artist who founded it, had this crazy big idea, like massive idea, massive exhibition, all about the importance of honoring work and workers.
Yeah.
And that is, again, a passion I've always had, that we should not settle for a job. We should find work that's meaningful to us in some way or other. And your impact as a leader in any capacity can determine how other people who are working with you or for you look at their own work. I was just reading a great study on that. So, I think over the time, and I know Susan and I talked about this a lot, the whole cultivating in ourselves through reading and conversations and people we listen to and what we put in our minds, cultivating not just a positive mindset, but a mindset of possibility and vision. And I'm kind of wired that way anyway. But I will say, just, for anybody listening to this who looks at others and thinks I could never do it, most of us with some moxie in our lives doing unusual and wonderful things, we do it in spite of a lot of insecurities and questioning ourselves. And it doesn't stop, it goes along the way. But I do think that the consistent kind of cultivating, growing, watering of the power of our own minds, gratitude. And so that is what really, I know you're going to ask us about the Good News Girls, but that really is where Susan and I intersected. So, I mean, we just have a great time together, but we intersected so strongly there that we have so much power to shape our lives, and it really matters that we live a happy life. So I guess my moxie has shown up in jumping into things way over my head and finding out how I can make it work and grow it and really be an impact for good in certain ways. And I hope that still continues.
Why shouldn't it?
Yeah.
I loved what you said about how a belief of others in you can be a spark. And I think that really goes to trying to be observant and actually articulate to others what they bring to a situation, because maybe that's all it needs is just a little, hey, you're really good at that. And then the moxie takes off in that person. Okay, so you opened the door, Mimi, to the Good News Girls. So we're really curious. Thorin, do you want to? I mean, you're not yet 50, so
No.
maybe you should start us off asking the questions about it.
Well, when Mary told me about it, I was like, all right, first of all, how did you two meet? How did this idea come about? And then where'd you go from there? Like, I'm always curious about the first layer. How did this coming together, and then how did it sprout from there? Because I've been, on trips with some friends, and we, like, once I was on a photo trip with two friends, and we were just in our Airbnb after days of shoots, and then we were coming up with all kinds of ideas that sparked into things. So I'm always curious to see where that initial spark comes from. So how did it come
Susan,
about for you?
jump in?
Well, sure. I'll start. I always think movement creates such great things. I wrote a book, and my best chapters were after I would come in after a run and sit down. In fact, my leather chair got so gross from sweat, I had to get rid of it. So we have great ideas when we're moving. And Mimi and I had known each other for maybe 4 years. And we were friends, but more casual friends. We'd see each other every month or two. We sort of did a social thing with some friends, etc. Did a little book group together. And Mimi had a trip that she was taking to England and invited me to go the week before to hike. And here we are in beautiful England hiking. It was just breathtaking. And so you're put in a place where you're just in awe of the world, on top of the world, feeling that you could take on the world. And we started talking about what's next, because where we were okay, but I think we all feel that way. There's what's next. I consider myself a mountain climber. And I don't like to keep climbing the same mountain over and over. I want to scale a new mountain. I still want to do great things, but I like to do different things too. So I had a desire to do something that was more online, and of course it morphed into something a little bit different, but to create something for women. I didn't know exactly what it was, but we hashed it out through that trip, didn't we, Mimi? We talked about it and we just sort of came up with this idea, and it really, I'll let Mimi get into that more, but what we landed on was movement, women that are in this next stage, and thinking we have more time freedom, financial freedom. We have so much more freedom now because we're not running around raising kids. You're sort of more set in your life. And a lot of people retire, which is great. But then I think, well, now what are you going to do? Like, do something. Don't just, even if it's just for fun, travel, see things. But a lot of people work to retire, and then their reward is, I don't have to get up and commute to work, or I don't have to answer to the boss, or I have, Mondays off now, whatever it might be. We wanted more than that. And I think we're so driven. We wanted people to experience, or at least realize, that retirement isn't the end. What's next?
I mean, you think about, I was just sitting here thinking, the mindset has everything to do with everything. Yeah. And so if you, in a weekend, you haven't thought, you had a busy week, you haven't thought ahead, you kind of back into the weekend, and you kind of, like, the morning's over before you know it, you just sat around. Maybe you wanted to walk, but you really didn't get out, and you didn't see this person, but it's a little gloomy, and then you don't feel that motivated, and then the next day kind of folds in. But if you wake up in the morning and you've thought about that weekend, and you thought, okay, so I actually have uninterrupted time, I'm going to completely repaint and redo my downstairs. You can get so much done in a couple weeks. I'm not just saying that as, like, somebody who wants to be hyper active, but what I'm saying is having a picture of the value of a block of time really makes a difference. I think it was early on when Susan and I started talking, we started listening to Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Wiser Than Me, great podcast. And we heard Jane Fonda, she's the one who talked about the third act, but a few of these interviews with women, it just made us realize, if we're talking about life in 3 stages, so maybe the first is 25, 30 years, you're doing all of the busy stuff you do when you're growing up and you're getting educated and figuring out what your life is going to be. Next 25, 30 years, you are maybe educated, getting a job, family, community, whatever it is that you're focused on. And then you come to this place, and most, we'll say women, because that's what we're about, kind of just back into it. And they don't have a lot of the structures and connections that supported their lives before. And it could be 25, 30, or for somebody who comes in at 50, in our group, 50 plus. And we do have a soft margin there, Thorin. So good
to
She's not even close.
We don't card anybody. Okay, well, look at you. but if you think it could be, 25, 30, 35 years, that's a really significant part of our lives.
Yeah.
And so I think whatever it is, and what Susan and I really love is to bring our enthusiasm and mindset and bits of wisdom to share in the midst of walking and having a blast, socializing, doing workshops, it's not like a teaching thing. We don't set up as experts, but we love sharing that so women can get the feel. It's the feel and the vibe that you should be excited about this part of your life, because you can do great things, and nobody's, there are no limits. It's only in here. So I think that's the biggest thing, is that we are all about helping women see the third act differently. Like it's all about perspective. But again, we're not by nature people who want to sit around and expostulate, a philosophy. We have a philosophy underneath it all, but as Susan said, we both move. I mean, I'm a dancer, Susan's a marathon runner, and we feel better moving. We feel the body's often left behind in life. So again, we do a lot of, the hiking and walking, and it's such a fluid, mobile way for women to come in and connect and feel comfortable. But everybody's going to find their own path and their own sparks that are going to light them up. And it might be one thing, it might be another, it might not be a grand thing at all. Yeah, we did a short on our first retreat we led last fall. We did a short workshop on ikigai, which you've probably heard of, but it's the Japanese version of a sense of purpose in your life. But it's not necessarily a grand purpose. We sometimes think it has to be a grand life-changing purpose or entrepreneurial purpose. But even a sense that you get excited to get up in the morning to do your part in the garden that you love and tend to be part of the natural world and that amazing growth. So yeah, that's where it starts. It starts in our perspective.
This episode is proudly sponsored by Main Street Magazine. Main Street Magazine is a monthly magazine and a website with daily content, and we love to feature people, places, and things that make our community special. To learn more, please visit our website, www.mainstreetmag.com. So what can someone expect? First of all, how do they find you? And then what can they expect? We've obviously gone through your website, but the women who work with you, who come to your retreats, what's the run us through what to expect and how it works?
Well, one of the first things we did is when we wanted to form this group, we wanted people sort of like us in the sense that we could be a wine tasting community, which we really should talk about that.
Yeah, we should.
But what we wanted to do was we wanted women that just sort of had a zest for life, like to be outdoors. We love to be outdoors in nature. We love to move our bodies. So part of what we did was create a hiking group, which anybody can come and join. But from there, I think people really just see the value because I can't tell you the compliments we get. Everyone is so welcoming. It's not cliquey. No matter who you're walking next to, you strike up a great conversation. And we'll do that, and we'll do social. And really what we found, it's one of those things, build it and they will come. People have found us. I've been interested to find people would come, and I said, oh, are you a guest of someone? They said, no. I mean, we've had people in Florida join us. We still can't figure out how they found us. And of course, they can't come to our physical things, but we do, some virtual things as well. But it's really been a matter of, it's a movement, I think. Someone comes, they have a great time, they tell someone, and so on and so on. Wouldn't you say, Mimi? We're not advertising. We're just sort of saying everyone's welcome, and people see how welcoming it is. And I will say this too, we've had people say this has been a real life changer for them. They've been in a place where, think about it, when you're a mom and your kids are in school, most of your friends are your kids' friends' parents.
Yep.
Or if you're working, they're the people you work with. Then you get to, 50, 60 and beyond, and your kids aren't in school and nothing happened with those friends. However, you don't see them anymore, and you're retired, so you don't see those people anymore. And we are missing those daily connections. And so this is a place to connect with like-minded women. We're all in the same sort of phase of our life. and realizing there's so much more. It's so inspiring when you see someone did something, whatever it might be, and you think, oh, I'd love to do that. But if you're living in your own little world, you don't see that other people are doing things. It doesn't even occur to you
Right.
necessarily. So I think it's just been eye-opening for a lot of these women. They're getting together, we're socializing, we're having fun, we're moving, we're seeing different places where and the people in our group are so diverse. It's just all different careers, etc., retired, some are still working. And it really just opens your mind to all the possibilities. And I think that is it. It's Mimi and I are the cruise directors, but it's the people that are on the team that are really making it gel.
Yeah, and I mean, between the meetup, we post our meetup hikes, and that's that draws people from everywhere. But as Susan said, when they come, it's surprising how many, even after just the first time, literally, we just have a good time at the beginning, and we're laughing, and people just all women start talking to each other, and some of them are like, "Oh, I've been desperate for this." So a lot of it is the need for connection, and that has nothing to do with somebody may have had an extremely successful career, but when it ends, that was your whole world. So
Right.
it's all different examples of that. But also now we have a monthly social. So in the context of, again, just a really free flowing fun time to socialize with people, and a lot of women are bringing friends to that and also to the hike, which is great. We've also been sort of showcasing in a very informal way one woman to share something of her life, a story, her work. And Mary came as our guest. And, Mary, you could feel how completely engaged everyone was with what you were talking about, because you talk about life design. And that's what we're really about. We don't call it that, but it really is the idea that, you still count. You're not, a lot of people too. I mean, I was just with my two little grandsons and my daughter and family, but, a lot of women, their lives are all around children and maybe grandchildren, but we need something beyond a role. It is about us too. And we need to be in a discovery mode for that. So we have all sorts of talks like Mary's. And also we had my sister-in-law who has worked in the Department of Corrections for years, for her to bring her story of the women that she's worked with to sort of broaden our empathy of how women might end up in that situation. We also did a clothing drive around it for those women as they come into the work world. So there's also practical hands-on, a way of like giving back in a way. And the sky's the limit for us to invite and showcase. And it's really, again, about connecting. And as Susan said, seeing what somebody else does is the best impetus to thinking, what could I do, or I could do that also.
I have to chime in, having gone on one hike so far and been at one of the dinners, so I'm a new member, was also the degree of organization and creativity. Like even Susan, you saying we like to pick paths that are wide enough for at least two people to walk abreast so that conversations can occur. And Mimi in the restaurant, just ensuring that separate checks were available when you have a group of 25 or 30 women. You make it so easy. And I really appreciate those kind of behind the scenes logistical parts of what you're trying to do, plus the creativity that you bring. So, yeah, I've really enjoyed my time just in the two things that I've done, met new people, and feel like my horizons have expanded. And so I'm very appreciative. You mentioned, Mimi, philosophy. You know that's my background. So I really want to dig into that philosophy a little bit. And on the website, Good News Girls, you have your philosophy kind of laid out for people.
I've been talking about this book over the last few weeks that I've been reading. Susan's heard me talk about it, called The Happiness Advantage by Sean Aker. And the amount of research showing that our choice of what we look for and focus on completely transforms the life that we live and the things we can accomplish. I mean, it is a fact So, yeah, I think that's one of the main core things that Susan and I bring is, we're not Pollyanna. We all have a lot of hardships. We've all gone through some very tough things that have shaped us.
Right.
And we currently may be still, and a lot of the women that we're with are. Um, and there's a lot of fear and anxiety. I mean, our world is riddled with it. So our basic idea is, since we do have this power within us to create happiness, whatever we're facing, the more we are sort of fueled with that, supported by it, surrounded by people who are connected and supporting us in that way, the easier it's going to be to navigate the difficulties. But setting off into this stage of life with the mindset, which is really prevalent, oh, this is the age where you have to fixed income, you've got to watch this, you've got to, it's all about like caution, guarding yourself, protecting yourself, a lot of suspicion. It's not expansive and open, and that takes a toll. It's not a good way to live. And it also closes doors. So, and it's the same, I mean, having a nonprofit background, management and all that, and you guys know this too, you've seen it, the ability in the face of hardship for people to transform a problem into solutions and better lives for people. It's just one of the best things in the world when you see that happen. So, we're encouraging women in our own lives to do that, because again, I don't think people realize how much of a choice you have.
Right.
And also, I always say this, it really does matter how you're living each day, not just worrying about the future or sorry about the past, and we don't let ourselves have joy enough. We don't let ourselves laugh enough. Susan is, she's one of my favorite people because she makes me laugh so much. And I love to laugh anyway. I can make people laugh. But when we're together, that's a beautiful thing, because again, we talk about deep things and we have to figure things out as just friends ourselves. Don't always see eye to eye, but we have that really deep basic premise, which is transformative. It just is.
Yeah, that collaborative aspect of life that you talk about, doing things in community, and the fact that at this age it's more isolating because, as Susan said, you're kind of losing those friends that you once had because of situation. Nothing happened, just situations changed. I mean, I definitely noticed that. And also that I liked that you draw attention to the fact that there is a lot of change going on for women in their health, in their bodies, in migrating from caretaker of small humans to caretaking older humans if they have to care for a parent or a relative, and that the flexibility and also the quest for reclaiming small chunks of time that could make a difference, like what you can accomplish in 5 minutes, whether it's painting a windowsill bottom or doing 10 push-ups or whatever it is that you can, like reclaiming that in the face of our technological just scroll. That's where I'm trying to claw back some of my life is the battle with technology.
Is it also kind of one of our guests a long time ago mentioned that you're not an island? And once you realize that, you just, invite someone for coffee, have a conversation. It seems like you guys are doing that on a grander scale. But is that also something that the ladies in your program feel, that it's kind of a reminder that they're not alone going through all these various things, but they actually have that all in common?
Absolutely. We have several women who are widows,
Uh-huh.
and they have really detached. It's hard to
Yeah.
make friends when you're older. It just
Right.
is. Where do you go to meet people? And I feel that a lot of these women getting into this group, I've noticed that they're meeting up and having coffee. And
Oh,
so we do our group together, but
yeah.
it's not so exclusive. That the whole purpose is to make more friends, make connections, and do things. We only hike twice a month.
Right.
Well, I want people to get out there more than twice a month.
Right, right, right.
But it's the catalyst, and I think people are really forming great bonds above and beyond. It's reminding them it's just a place to gather and meet and kind of go on from there. It's really been amazing.
We also have a book group we call Bookends because we start off giving the name of the book, and the very end we're now gathering in person. I think we'll do as much of that as we can from now for going forward. But I'm sure for all of you, that reading a book opens your ability to see a life or lives or cultures, history, whatever, that you would never understand, and it enriches you.
Mm-hmm.
So to do that together as a group is really, really great. I've always often wished, I mean, I studied literature in classes. That's a different thing. I don't have to write papers now, which is awesome. But I've often wished over the years, I wish somebody was reading this book right when I am, because I want to talk about it, because it has characters. And that's been, don't you think, Susan, that's been a really surprisingly great way to connect and hear people's thoughts?
It's so interesting because it's almost like an icebreaker, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
When we go on our hikes, we don't dictate what we're going to talk about. We keep everything positive. That's why we're the good news girls. So not that people don't have drama or something going on. It's not taboo, but we try to look at the bright side of things, etc. But having this book group is great because it's really gives you a chance to reflect on yourself around a situation that you might be in. And the conversations have been amazing. My mother-in-law is in a book group, and she's had a book group for years. So she asked me last night at Sunday dinner, she said, "Do you talk about the book in the book group?" Because they find that usually they do the book group and they start talking about something else. I said, "Actually, we do talk about the book, but it definitely expands into us and what we're doing and what we're thinking." And so the books we choose they've all been great. There's not a book that we've had that I've thought, oh, I wish we didn't. There's always something great, and it always connects to us somehow.
Yeah, I'll just throw in, I told Susan once that years ago I started a book group with a couple of friends from when I worked at Hillstead. And we had one that we met, and then we decided, let's go to a restaurant. So we would go to the restaurant, but we never again talked about a book, or even we stopped reading books. So we began to call it the booking club because we were booking restaurants. So we do both. We went to a winery the last time, which was really beautiful. That was our location.
I want to, you've mentioned a couple of times, but the positivity of thinking that it seems to be both of you, it just emanates from you, your aura. And in your bios, you talk a little bit about that. Do you feel that just in everyday life, people sometimes get muddled in it, and so they lose kind of that zest for life and that positive thing? Because I feel like once you have that way of mind or mindset, it opens up doors and windows that you might not otherwise see. And you feel like people who come to your groups and are around this positivity, it kind of clears up the windows and doors so they see again these positive things and possibilities. Is that a huge factor in it?
Absolutely. I will say many women have come to me, even in tears, saying, "This has changed my life." We keep it positive.
Yeah.
That's it. Not a fake positive.
Right.
But because there's no such thing as everything being perfect all the time. Years ago, there was this knitting group, and I knit as well. And I think it was called something like Stitch and Bitch.
Yes. Yes.
I said, that is not what we are. There's so many positive things.
Yeah.
And it's just about changing direction. And an analogy would be, we're all going to hit a traffic jam. You're driving along, but there's another way you could go. Or if you're stuck in the traffic jam, turn on a podcast. You can ask Siri to call your friend, and you can do something and not just dwell on the fact that you're sitting in traffic. There's another way around it.
Yeah.
So that's really what this is. We understand, like you said, we have aging parents. Some of us have that, or we're still helping our kids that are in their 20s or 30s. there's still things that we have to do, but there has to be a time that we take for ourselves and not dwell on all those other things and really just kind of find gratitude.
You hear a lot of women talking about, like retreats and spas and, going off to get R&R. Like women, we know we have a hard time taking care of ourselves and feeling not feeling guilty because we're caretakers, all that stuff. And that's great. But we're really a lot more than that because I think of it as fuel, because when you are sitting in the traffic jam, that's, time you spent for a day at the spa getting, nails and massage and all that, that's not going to really help you in that moment. But the idea of expanding your belief in your own potential and how much you can affect your own happiness, that could help you. Like Susan said, you might say, all right, I don't want to lose an hour by being angry, so I'm going to do this. That's a huge thing. The training, I actually went to England, the time that I then asked Susan, so it's tied into this, is a type of life planning. It's within the financial industry. But it's really interesting how some of the core methodology has to do with having people imagine that they only have 5 to 10 years left. There's very specific questions. And then imagining you only have 24 hours left. And it wasn't, it's not like, what would you do with that last 24 hours? It's who did you not get to be? What did you not do with your life? And you could say that is sort of morbid to think about your death, but it really helps you condense. And it's related to your life design, Mary, in some ways. But when you think about doing what we're doing in the third act, it is a time when you think a little more about your mortality. Your body is feeling it. Certain things are past. You're not in the prime of life, you might say. But it is a really great time to be a little wiser about what really matters to you, and to you also, it's not a selfish thing to really strive for your happiness because everybody around you benefits, right? And that more things are done that are good in the world, connections made. Like it's helped me personally really transform my feeling about this time of life, which can be filled with a lot of uncertainty and negativity and anxiety. And we don't have to feel that way. We really don't.
Well, we are at that time already.
Oh my God, that was quick.
Yeah, I know it was. You've given us a lot to think about, but if we could crystallize down for each of you, if you gave someone one little piece of advice to move that moxie needle, what would it be? What would you say to them?
Yeah, my saying, I say this all the time, it's never too late to change your life. And it really takes a step. That's it. Just get started. I think people wait for things to get all the stars to align, everything to be perfect, and nothing is ever perfect, even when you plan and figure it all out. I think it's just getting started. And I know taking that first step for me 22 years ago, running for the very first time when walking was a struggle, how it just changed every single thing in my life. And all I did was run to the mailbox. And then you take a couple steps and you go again. But if you don't start there, you'll just never start. So start somewhere, one step.
I guess I would say I'm a huge collaborator. I love collaborating. And I think that's a great way to get some moxie in your life, is to do it with somebody else. Do something. And even as Susan's saying, it might be something little, but if you want to add one little thing in your life, have a partner, maybe accountability, maybe to do it together, maybe to meet up weekly and make something happen. But, it's how this started with Susan and me collaborating. I'm sure you guys have tons of things in your life that are your collaboration in your Moxie podcast, right? Absolutely. Yep. So I think that's one simple thing you can do, because then you can energize each other and encourage each other.
Yeah, the buddy system, definitely.
Yeah, buddy system, right.
All of the resources that you mentioned, the website, the schedule, the meetup group will be in the show notes of the podcast. And you're located mostly near the Avon, Farmington Valley, kind of that's
Well,
where the
out to the
pulse of
north
it
and northwest corner,
and northwest
all of the
corner
northwest corner, yeah.
Okay.
Of Connecticut, for those who
Of
aren't.
Connecticut, yeah.
Yes. And I was just going to say, we do have retreats when we're obviously fairly new, but over a weekend, somebody might want to come further and we may be going further afield as well. So.
Nice.
Well, all those resources will be there for people to connect with you. And thank you so much for sharing your stories with us on Moxie. I feel like what you're doing is
It's amazing.
really Moxie creating.
Yeah.
It's really, I've just enjoyed the two things that I've done and I'm so grateful. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
We're glad you remember, Mary.
Thanks. Okay, Thorin, I bet you're wishing you're 50.
Almost. This was very interesting talking to the three of you who are in that, third act, but also it gave me kind of a glimpse of what's to come. And it helped me actually reframe how I was thinking about it. Because they touched on so many points that are interesting and a lot of which resonated with me, like the fact that most of my friends now are my kids' parents, so, and I'm sure that more of it resonated with you considering, you're their demographic really, but I'm
Yeah, keep saying that. Just keep rubbing it in.
I'm inching to it. But a lot of what they also talked about can resonate with anyone and, male or female in any walk of life. The fact that, like Susan was talking about, anything is possible. Only you have the power to change your future and it's never too, late to change your life. Those are huge, impactful, important, and meaningful messages that each and every one of us should be reminded of every day. And that I think it was Mimi who was saying, she wants to learn every day, that we continue learning every day. So there was just one message after another of positivity and creation and connection that they spoke of that I think truly, truly can resonate with each and every one of us, regardless of where in life we are.
Yeah, I agree. And they weren't like, it's not all rainbows and unicorns.
No, not at all.
It's in creating positivity in the face of some real challenges, which I really enjoyed experiencing that for myself on some of their events, just listening to stories and hearing where people are coming from and where they want to go. And I just loved how, I'm picturing them in a British pub after a long hike and just coming up with this idea and then believing that they were the two who could make it go.
Yeah.
And they have organically tapped into something that is a real need. And it is a need that I've been feeling.
Yes.
And the desire to stay active. I really like the emphasis that they have on physical movement and being in your body and then also collaborating with others and forming connections. So I just love it. I wish you could join, but you can't. So
well,
anyway,
they said that age group was, it's not a hard line.
You're not even in the window, so don't even try. But anyway, I really enjoyed, and I'll keep you updated on my adventures with the Good News Girls.
Sounds great. I can't wait to hear all about it. Well, Mary, we'll see you next time.
See you next time, Thorin. We'll have another good guest, I am sure.
This episode is proudly sponsored by Main Street Magazine.